Ex-West Ham employee is the anonymous Twitter ITK who is also behind the West Ham Way website and the West Ham Way podcast alongside Dave Walker. You'll know him from Twitter because every time he tweets anything, it basically goes viral. And Gio sat down with him during our mammoth 24-hour live stream to raise money for Isla Caton and the Bradley Larry Foundation and asked him some questions that I personally was really interested in learning more about. For example, how did he start being an ITK? Why does he carry on doing it? Why does he do it anyway at all? These sort of things that I was really interested in, and hopefully you will too. So sit down, have a listen, and at the end, click on the link to see some of the other interviews we've already uploaded and subscribe to make sure you don't miss any of the ones coming up further.
Thank you for joining us. How's your holiday?
Brilliant, mate. Yeah, loving it. In the sun, with my beers. Yeah, what more can you want?
News on transfers. You were out of the loop on this one.
I know. I was saying to Charlie off air, it's actually probably the first time in about 5-6 years where I've not known a transfer is happening or known anything about the player. It was like being back to the old school, just suddenly checking my phone and seeing we'd signed someone. So, yeah, had no idea, mate, no idea.
Well, it's a good thing. It caught everybody by surprise as well. But anyway, I just want to have a quick chat with you about West Ham employee and get your views on some broad West Ham topics. Then we'll take questions from the live chat later on as well. Let's go right back to the start. How did you become West Ham employee?
It's an interesting question, right? So basically, me and a mate used to follow other ITKs on Twitter, or supposed ITKs on Twitter. So we're talking about 2012 now, probably. And there was a few decent ones and a few useless ones. And I used to say to my mate, actually, I'm going to say who the mate is. You know, Vince, that's been on the West Ham Way radio show. You've met him, Gio. You've met him at the boats. Yeah. So Vince said to me at work one day, like, you know, I was always going, oh, he's talking rubbish. And he went, well, why don't you do it yourself then? And I went, not really sure. And then I sort of thought about it. And then we were like, right, well, we need a catchy name to make you stand out. And back in the day, most people were always like West Ham ITK or West Ham Source or something like that. So we thought, well, most of the people telling me the information are ex-employees. Technically, back in the day, I was one as well. So let's go with that name because it stands out. I wish... now so much. I hadn't have chosen that name, but it's too late. I can't do anything about it. Stuck with it now. And the fact is, a lot of my friends that I've met, like yourself, will call me X, and most don't even know what my name is now. So it's kind of been adopted as a name. And it just kept going. I said I'd stop at 1,000 followers. Then it went to 1,000. I was like, I'll just do 2,000 and so on. And then I said I'd stop when I had more followers than West Ham's ground. And then we went and moved to the London Stadium, didn't we? Which kept me around a bit longer. And if you look, I'm at 57 now. And what's the London Stadium hold? 60. So who knows? Who knows what will happen? But we'll see. But yeah, that's how it all started, really. And people used to tell. I used to get news all the time, as just because I know people that are connected at the club, like players, coaches, scouts, and so on. And as a fan, I kind of wanted to share that information as well and be accurate, rather than these ITKs would say, "Oh, West Ham are about to sign this player." Everyone would get excited, and then they wouldn't sign. It was just embarrassing. So I tried to bring some credible news to West Ham fans as well.
Yeah, was that your only aim when you started then, just to deliver accurate news? Because your aims have obviously changed since then, but we'll get on to that. But when you originally started, was your aim simply just to give accurate information and dismiss what you can consider made-up links, etc.?
Yeah, exactly, mate. I mean, the thing is, when I started, only Vince knew and no one else. Like, literally, my wife didn't even know. So I'd got up to like 2,000, 3,000 followers with no one knowing. And and to be honest with you, Vince actually forgot for the first 1,000 followers. So it was literally only me that was doing it. And I had no other purpose other than to try and bring accurate news to West Ham fans. And when we were all going, oh, we're going to sign Neymar, we're going to sign whatever his name, Lewandowski, we're going to sign all these other ridiculous names we're being linked with, I could turn around and say, no, we're not. We're actually going to be signing John Carew or whoever it was we were signing back in the day. So it was to give accurate news. That was the only reason. There was no money. There was no other incentive. There was nothing other than that.
Yeah, when I first came across you were doing articles for a couple of websites at the time. One of them was the old WHU TV or something. It wasn't West Ham Fan TV. It was the people that streamed the games illegally. You're writing articles for them. But then it went from there to you create your own website.
Yeah.
How did that come about, and what was the aim / plan of creating the West Ham Way?
Well, when, as you said, that site got rumbled for its illegal activities, I didn't have a home, so to speak, and I was kind of thinking, like, what should I do? And a couple of sites approached me and stuff, and I thought I could write for them, or I could actually do my own thing. And I started off, and I wanted to just bring a collaboration of all the good West Ham things that were out there. So obviously I approached you guys, as you know. I approached Sex, Drugs and Carton Cole. I approached West Ham Fan TV, Sean Wetson, Knees Up Mother Brown, I think. I can't remember, but I approached everyone just to kind of have us all sort of under one banner where we could just have quality content. And again, there was no kind of, at that point, any other incentive other than to just, this is the hub for all good things, West Ham, come here. And then I could obviously control what I knew was good and what wasn't. And then it just, again, took off from there, really. And every time I started something else would kind of come up.
Yeah, you then moved on to your radio show next. I mean, you had a couple of other projects on the go. You had a fanzine at one point, but your radio show is what came and then really took off. Now, we've got Dave on later to give his version of it, but what's your version of the West Ham Way radio show / podcast? So
I was just sitting at home randomly. I've got an email address, obviously, for the West Ham Way, and an email came into there, and I'd occasionally get offers to do various things, but it came in from Paul Golder, who's the owner and producer of Phoenix FM in Brentwood, and it just said, hiya, and he introduced himself, and then he said, I'd just like to propose an idea to you about you having your own radio show here in Brentwood. Come down and we'll have a chat. And I thought it was going to be a load of, are we allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Okay, I was supposed to be allowed to bullshit, and then when I met with him, he was a nice fella. He told me that Ronnie O'Sullivan has a show there, Steve Davis, a few other people, and it seemed very, very legit. And I said to him, Paul, I don't think that I've got the personality to front a show on my own. There's no way I'll be able to do it. I might be able to bring the news, but I just don't think I'd be able to think of any other content beyond that. And he was like, well, it could just be a news show for like 15 minutes. And I was like, that's a bit rubbish. And he was like, well, what go away and have a think about it. And I went away and I thought about it, and I just started to get quite good mates with Dave and Kev from Sex, Drugs and Carton Cole, and have been out for drinks with them a couple of times. And I kind of thought, well, those two would be perfect. I thought either Evan, who was doing the West Ham fanzine, West Ham Way TV with me, or I could do Dave and Kev, because of where they lived and things like that. It was made more sense of Dave and Kev, and so we did it with those two. I had to persuade Dave. Dave was very, very reluctant. He was like, I don't know if I can commit to it. I haven't got that much time. We've got families, blah, 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 blah. And he was actually very resistant, and it took a bit of persuading. And then I got them on board, and it just kind of went from there, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of blown up a bit. I remember your very first show, you had Sir Trevor Booking on. I remember speaking to you about it, and then, you changed sort of how you did your radio show pretty quickly, because you had an ex-player on for an interview, and then it was just yourself, Dave and Kev. Yeah. And we were always sort of bouncing ideas backwards and forwards, etc., and talking about your show and that. But it's exploded since then now. All you have to do is log on to, if you go on Twitter, basically, the day after your show, it's just full of the West Ham Way podcast comments, etc. I mean, did you ever expect it to get this big, or are you surprised yourself, despite having tens of thousands of followers on Twitter, etc.? Are you surprised at how big it's got?
The whole thing, mate, is so surprising. I never thought for 1 second the Twitter account would be as big as it is. I never thought for 1 second the podcast would. I thought the podcast would maybe we'd do 10 episodes, maybe at best get 100 to 200 listeners, and it would kind of fizzle out a little bit from there. But the fact that we got Trevor Brooking as the first one, I was like, well, whatever happens, that's enough for me. I've sat in a room with Trevor Brooking and I've spoke to him, so it was always going to be worth doing, having had Trevor for the first show. But it just kind of, I was shocked at how many people listened and the feedback we were getting. And now, when, I mean, I don't want to put the figure out there because it looks like I'm showing off, but the figure we get for our listeners every week, and Dave would be able to back me up as well, is mind-blowing at times, and especially when you see the geography map of it, where we've got listeners. So you've got listeners in countries that some of them I hadn't even heard of, let alone be able to pronounce. So, it was, it's really, really like amazing what's happened. And obviously I thank everyone that does listen, and they put up with my annoying voice every week as well. So credit to them for doing that. And it's been absolutely amazing. It's something we love doing because we just see it as what is now me and Dave just sitting in a, it's the sort of conversation we would have in our car, in the pub or wherever. So it's nothing different to that. And it's just interesting that so many people like to hear what we've got to say.
Yeah, don't worry. I get the voice comments as well. You're not alone there. People tuning. This is a nightmare for people tuning in tonight. They're finding, oh my God, there's these two speaking. Can we not get someone in to translate for us, etc., etc. Your event came reasonably quickly after. How did that come about, etc.?
Well, see, this is the thing. The event started off, I'll be honest, as an idea from Dave and Mark Ward. So the podcast was more my idea, and the event was more Dave. So we could kind of this is why our friendship works so well, because we come up with different ideas. So his was the event, and he just contacted me and said, "Look, I've been speaking to Mark Ward, the host of the show. He says that in what Everton do before a matches, they hire out this like hall or whatever. They get a load of booze in, they get an ex-player to host it and an ex-player to be a guest, and it's banged out every week. Wardy wants to do it for West Ham." And Dave said to Wardy that he didn't at that point have the kind of, I guess, the reach that I had at the time. So he said, well, we've got to get X involved. He's the one that will be able to put it out there to a larger audience. And then we kind of met and agreed how it would work. And the first time I ever met Wardy actually was in his best mate Mick's house, and he was absolutely smashed. And I walked in, and Tottenham were playing the Champions League. Hopefully they're actually losing at this point. I think it was a year or 2 years ago now. I just remember thinking Wardy was a really aggressive little man, and I remember thinking this is just not going to work. He doesn't like me. I can tell. I sense he's got a problem with me. But as it turned out, and the more drunk I got, it turned out to be a good laugh. And we sat down, we come up with the terms, and that's now about 30 events down. I can't remember the exact number, but some great memories there. And we've met so many West Ham legends as a result of it, that it's been an absolutely amazing thing. And to be honest, Joe, I feel very, very blessed and fortunate that I can do these things, because I'm just a fat lad with a Twitter account that supports West Ham, and I've got nothing else, nothing more than that. People think I have an ego the size of, I don't know, a planet. I don't really. I actually am very shy and reserved in some ways. So for me to be involved in something like this I am very, very grateful. And if I quit tomorrow, I'd have memories to last a lifetime. So yeah, happy days.
Yeah, there's definitely two sides to you. I think there's that side that everybody sees, which, I've said this to you before. I can see why some people think you have the ego side of it. But when you get to know yourself as a person, you know that's just like a shield, if you like, almost. It's not a true representation of yourself. But you see,
sorry, go on, mate.
Who's your favourite guest you've had? You've obviously had quite a lot, but if you had to pick one that was your number one guest for everything, whether it's off air, whether on the stage with the people, who's your number one?
So hard, mate. I mean, obviously, in terms of we're talking about the podcast and the events, then being with Trevor Brooking is never going to be better, because he's such a legend and he's such a nice guy. Other legends, Julian Dix is a hero of mine. We've had him on the podcast twice, and the events once, so that's a real bonus. But see, the thing is, what the supporters don't seem to realise is generally the better guess, are those that aren't quite as famous, if that makes sense. So obviously, you know you're going to get something special when you have like Carlton Cole, who's hilarious. You know Dean Ashton's going to be brilliant. You know Phil Parkes out of Devonshire, because they're such top names. But they're stories are stories that you've kind of already heard, because they're like, you know, on the West Ham website or in magazines or whatever. Whereas it's those players that were kind of you sort of want a better word, like average to good players for West Ham. They're generally the really interesting ones. I mean, Martin Allen is hilarious. Kenny Brown is an absolute diamond geezer. You know, there's been some others that I'm probably forgetting throughout the years that are just superb, and they're not the ones that probably jump to people's minds straight away, but actually they're the really, really good ones.
Yeah, I've been to a few. I mean, Julian Dix was good. I mean, that was popular, but he was funny, actually. I thought he had quite a good sense of humour to him as well. And I thought Jack Colson was probably my surprise guest, if you like. He was the one that, because he works with the club, I thought he might have been a bit retained, if you like, but he wasn't. He was quite open and stuff. And he was able to sort of deflect questions here and there using humour. Because I remember someone said to him about the London Stadium or something, and he's just made a joke about how he's now employed by them, as if to say, like, you know, what do you want me to say? There's only so much I can say. But I thought he was really good as well. But what's the aim for Exwhuemployee Employee now, looking into the future then? What are you hoping to do? Is there anything sort of on your to-do list?
Well, that's a good question, to be honest. I never quite know what's going to come up. I mean, obviously, you would have probably seen on Twitter that Dave and I are hopefully, fingers crossed, going to Las Vegas this summer. Now, this is absolutely, like, I can't get my head around this, like, that we're going to go out there and try and host a West Ham Way event with players that are out there or Americans, and do it with a load of American fans as well. Whether this will come off or not, I'm still a bit sceptical, because it's such a big thing, but the plans look like it's going to work. And everything else seems to be ticking along to suggest that it will work. So, yeah, if that comes off, that'll be absolutely sensational. And then beyond that, I don't really know, to be honest with you, because my head just weighs up so many options. You know, sometimes I think, let's just quit tomorrow. Let's quit on a high, let's quit tomorrow, or let's just concentrate on the podcast, or let's just do the podcast and the events and nothing else. And I never really know where it's going to go, to be honest with you. But events abroad, I guess, if you're looking for something that we haven't done yet that we'd like to do, is probably the next thing.
Yeah, right, that's the good stuff over and done with. Let's get on with the bad stuff now. Do you understand why some people don't agree with what you do?
Yeah, 100%. 100%, mate, because at the end of the day, some of the information, and I say some of the information I put out, I guess, could be debated whether it's useful to be put out or not. But what people don't understand is I am very, very selective in what I put out and what I don't put out. Like, occasionally I've told you things that have never, ever gone to air as such, that you've known for, just because I trust you. And I do select what I put out, and I do censor stuff. And what people don't understand is that I contact the club and I say to them, right, let's say this player's been in a nightclub, and I've got people sending me pictures of him fighting at 3 a.m. when he's saying he's injured the night before. Then I tell someone in the club, and they'll be able to put the enough out there to make sure the story doesn't happen. Or you know, I'll know of a fight on the training ground, for example, and I'll say to the club, right, I'm telling you, this many people know about it. You might want to think about how you're going to play it. And so I'd like to think my intentions are always good. And I never put anything out that I think is going to be massively negative. I never put anything out that I don't think is going to be leaked anyway. And I try to be selective with it. However, I do understand what I say. I do understand the fact that I quote tweet things when I've got them right. Looks like I've got an ego, looks arrogant, but if people can see the messages I get every day, even today when I've purposely not looked at transfers, for a week or so, I put my hands up. I've said I don't know what's going on with the transfers at the moment. I've had going on 50 to 100 messages today, calling me like a fraud, calling me this, calling me that, because I knew nothing about the transfer, and that's kind of why I put those tweets out, just to sort of, I don't know, just to show that I do know what I'm talking about.
Have you ever put anything out that you've regretted since, whether it's a transfer leak or anything? Have you ever put something out and you thought it was a good idea, and then later, whether it's immediately or a day later, you thought I shouldn't have done that?
Yeah, quite a few times, to be fair. Like the one that sticks in my mind the most, and this was actually accidental, for want of a better word.
Interesting. Does that ever make you think about changing what you do in the future? I mean, it must be very difficult to get the balance of what you leak and what you don't leak, but do you ever sort of try and change the balance, if you like, and try and hold more back, etc., if you put something out that you regret?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for example, the team news in the past, I still don't think that anyone, like any club, would ever wait until someone like me puts out a team news and change their whole team based upon one tweet. I mean, I've asked players this, and I've said, what would you do if you were sitting in the dressing room and the manager walked in and said, right, there's this guy on Twitter, he's said that this player's playing, and this one isn't. We're changing the tactics. You're not marking him anymore. You're marking him. I'm changing the right back. You're out and you're in. All on that Twitter. It just wouldn't happen. However, people said to me, what is the use of me putting out the team that early? And the more I thought about it, the more I kind of understood what they were saying. There isn't much use really to do it. So I now only put out, like, there are 2 changes or there are 5 changes. And even if there's no changes, then I just try not to say anything because it's too obvious. So I have changed things. And the one I regretted most was the Paye one, the WhatsApp one, because that was just, Dave knew about the story. The story was true. I just happened to know about it. I told him before the show, and he said to me, why don't you tell him about the Paye WhatsApp story? So I just said, oh, yeah, he's in a WhatsApp group, and then they got kicked out because they think he's going to leave the club. And then it was all on the back pages. It was on ESPN. It was on Sky Sports. It was literally everywhere. And I had no knowledge that it would get that big. It was just a random comment. But I do understand what people say. Transfers, for example, I know, and I said it on the American podcast the other day, I know of a transfer that is, I guess, semi-close to happening, but it's not been reported anywhere, and it's not a reasonably well-known player as such either. So I'm keeping quiet on it until it's in another paper or it's on another source, and then I'll say, yeah, that's it, that's the one. And I do that occasionally, and I also do what the club tell me. Sometimes the club will say to me, look, this is going to come out. We know that please don't say anything. So I don't. So yeah, I do. I am reasonably controlled, so to speak.
Do you know that when I asked you about your biggest regret, you said something the live chat didn't quite catch? Are you able to just repeat what your biggest regret is and expand on it a little bit?
My biggest regret.
When you put something out there, I said to you, is there anything you put out there you regret? You said, yeah, there's a few things, but one stood out. Can you just repeat what it was?
Well, it was the Paye one, the Paye WhatsApp one. That was that, and team news as well. But the Paye WhatsApp one, because it was just an innocent comment that I didn't think would ever escalate to the scale that it did, and then it just got huge, and I didn't foresee that was going to happen. But also, like I said, with the team news, I've now decided, on the back of what people have said to me, that there isn't much use me putting out exact team news like days before. It's okay if I put it out 10 minutes before the official one's going to be put out, but there's not a use doing it before that.
Is there anything that you've put out that the club have contacted you about after and said you shouldn't have done that X or whatever, or got angry with you for putting something out?
These are good questions, mate, and I was a bit unprepared, to be honest with you. Yeah, they have done that. Not so much recently, because, as I say, I'm in constant communication, not with David Sullivan, despite what people think. I actually couldn't tell you the last time I had a communication with David Sullivan or any of the Sullivans for any West Ham kind of news. The last time I spoke to David Gold was when he did the podcast with us a year ago. So basically, we're in communication. So the club will say to me, right, we know that you probably know about what's going to happen for Billy Bonds. Can you not, when the stadium's open, when they're opening the stand, can you not say exactly what's going to happen? Or we know you've seen the kits. Can you make sure you don't tweet them? So I had pictures of the kits I'd seen them about maybe 2-3 weeks ago, so that's why I could describe them. But I actually got a picture of the home and away kit about a week ago, and I could have easily tweeted it out. But I didn't because the club asked me not to, and I didn't want to anyway. And what's interesting about that is when you see so many West Ham social media accounts that are always like, I don't know, I guess not digging at me, but certainly saying, oh, this shouldn't be leaked, this shouldn't be leaked. The minute one of these accounts thinks they've got the West Ham kits, they tweet it as an exclusive. And there was another account that used to really dig at me for team news, and they got one bit of team news. I remember it about 2 months ago, and it was literally within about 7 seconds of getting it, they're tweeting it. And so when these accounts say, oh, he shouldn't do this, he shouldn't do that, most of them, if they had the info, would do it. So it's very hypocritical.
Yeah, good politician's answer there, X. But what did the club get angry about you the most about?
You're very good at this, mate. You should have your own political show.
Yeah. I won't be this good tomorrow for 20 hours. Whoever's on then's getting an easy ride.
I was going to say, I took the difficult shift going first, didn't I? I should have taken a 4 a.m. one. So they've got annoyed with me, I guess, when it's not to do with transfers, funnily, because they're kind of expecting that transfer rumours will get out there. It's more to do with things like, for example, when we were leaving the Upton Park, I had the whole list of what was going to happen. So, whatever the times were now, I can't remember, but like the first thing would be the Hammers of the Year coming in the taxi. Then it would be the Cockney Rejects. Then it'll be this. Then it'll be that. And I knew about Bobby Moore turning off the lights way before he turned off the lights. And I said something on the podcast about Bobby Moore is going to close the ceremony and it's going to be such a heartfelt moment. And they messaged me and they said they wanted that to be a surprise. And then I do start to feel bad then, because then I think, well, yeah, maybe that was what should have happened. But I don't know. That's the one. But as I said, it hasn't happened recently as much. And it's something that I try to learn from each time.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you get more than anyone else, I think, on West Ham social media is you get your fair share of trolls and criticism. You sent me a screenshot a few days ago of an account that was deliberately set up just to tweet you an abusive message. And nobody will ever see that unless they literally search your name and go to the latest and by chance see it, because they've got no followers, etc., etc. I mean, how badly do these trolls and criticisms and stuff affect you?
I wish I'd seen these questions beforehand.
Just be honest, though. How bad does it affect you?
Okay, because I have to be careful, because if I say it affects me a lot, then obviously it encourages them. It doesn't affect me a lot. Like, I don't sit there going, oh, I can't believe this person said this person said that. But it does affect me sometimes. It does, because especially the ones that are like, I guess, what's the word? Relentless, like the ones that tweet every couple of days, oh, he said this, he said that, and you can see so much through their arguments. They'll call you a fraud that you don't have any information, then they'll get annoyed that you leak things, then they'll say this about you, and it just contradicts each other, and you just want to say, can't you see that you're contradicting yourselves? But the minute you give them any airtime, it's exactly what they want. And it does affect you. Like, me, we've known each other a long time now. I'm certainly a lot more thick-skinned now than I was at the start, because I've got used to it. So I kind of do get a bit affected, but now I almost pity the people. Like, if someone's got to set up a Twitter account just to send me an abusive message, what else must there be in their lives? That's what I think. I think to myself, if you've got time to set up that account, send that message, and then sit back and feel better about yourself, there's probably not that many other good things in your life now. And I try to think of I don't know, the good that I've done with the account as well. You know, that doesn't often get talked about by the trolls and stuff, but I like to think whatever they may think of me, I've probably done more good with my account than you've done with your live. So I can almost like use that to kind of forget about them, and it don't bother me that much anymore. The ones about the voice, I don't give a shit about that. I kind of used to it now. The ones about being a fraud, don't really give a shit about that either. So no, it doesn't affect me as much as people probably think it does. But of course, you know, sometimes when you log on to Twitter, and I've got people as well, people know that I've got sleep issues, so I'm up every couple of hours. And when you look at the phone at 4 a.m. and you see, you know, things like, oh, you fucking prick, I'm gonna, excuse my language now, I'm gonna fucking turn up to the events and sort you out, you prick, you just think, why would someone do that? But yeah, that's kind of the honest answer, I guess.
Yeah, I've seen it. You know, you said it to me and stuff, and I see it. But I just think a lot of people don't see it because you obviously don't give them attention and stuff. So
yeah, usually I just block them and I ignore them, but occasional one will rile me. And I just think what they say is they always say, oh, he's attention seeking. Yet even though they've been blocked for years or whatever, they continuously talk about me. Now, if I didn't like something or someone, my solution to that would be to block them and have nothing to do with them. But almost by default, by keep talking about me, they're actually making the situation worse in some ways.
Yeah, quite right. How close have you come to giving it up? Whether it's just your Twitter account or whether it's the whole thing, how close have you come?
Many times I've come close. I mean, I took a couple of weeks off. Was it last summer or 2 summers ago now? I can't remember. Last summer, I think, just because the thing is, not only do you kind of think, is it worth the hassle? Like, you know, I don't get paid for this. People seem to think I make a mint off West Ham. I don't. The only thing we make a little bit of money from are the events, and they're kind of like here or there. Some events will make money on, other events will lose money. Like one event this year between us, I think Dave and I lost $1,000 each, you know, and then other events will make a bit, so it kind of balances itself out. But podcasts don't make anything from, website, nothing from the Twitter, and people kind of accuse you of doing that, and you don't. So you kind of think to yourself, what am I actually gaining from this? I'm getting, yes, people like the news, yes, people like to hear what's going on at the club, yes, people can go to the events and stuff, but is it really worth the hassle and the stick and that? So I do think about it, and you know what you're going to think as well is that it interferes with my family life. Like I do a podcast every Wednesday straight after work, so I don't see my kids then. Saturday I do an event, go to the game, don't see my kids then, spend a lot of time on the phone. You know, they're telling me things and I'm half listening, half not. So it does affect things. And I thought, yeah, I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna do it, and then someone will say to you, but think of the amount of people that like what you do, and yeah, and then so who knows, mate? Who knows? I mean, there might be a time where I kind of think, right, that's it.
Yeah, I've got one more question for you, and then we'll grab some questions from the live chat. So if you're watching this live on YouTube, you've got any question for Exwhuemployee, put them in the live chat, and any sensible ones, I will throw over to him. X, my last question to you: why are you still anonymous? Loads of people know who you are now through your events, especially. Is there a reason you're still hidden?
Yeah, well, a number of reasons. First of all, believe it or not, like I said earlier, it's actually because I don't like the attention of it. Now, if you come to the events, those people will know. I kind of do the tickets at the front because I have to, because there's not enough people, and then I kind of hide into the background a little bit because I don't really like the attention of it. I'm quite a reserved person. I mean, get me drunk and you'll see a different side, but most of the time I'm a reserved person, so I don't like the attention of it. I've also got, as I said, 3 kids that I'm, particularly my eldest, thinking about going to the games with next season. They don't need to see or witness some of the things that get said to me. I also have a job where I don't particularly want people to start, you know, knowing the crossover between the two and interfering with that. And some of the things people say to me, if they actually knew who I was or knew what I looked like, I'd just get even more personal abuse, and it's just not worth it. And also just because, like I say, I can go to West Ham pretty much now and not be recognised. Whereas, if I start to put my face out there, then I will be. And and that's the main reason. It started off because I wanted to keep people that knew me in the club. I didn't want them to know what I was doing. But as you said, most people know who I am now anyway. So it's not that. It's more because I don't like the attention of it. That's the main reason.
Brilliant. Right, let's take some questions for live chat. A few questions coming in that's going to push you to your limit here, X. And these are, you thought mine were tasty. There's a couple of these. Smearmint says, ask X if he thinks David Sullivan uses the culture of leaking at this club to push his own agenda and undermine managers.
Okay, it's a good question. I think David Sullivan, oh God, I've got to be so careful with these answers. I think David Sullivan does use certain social media people and social media accounts to test the water. I would definitely say that. On terms of a signing or something, polls spring up quite convenient times. I think he does use social media to get certain messages out. I don't think he's alone in doing that. I think a lot of chairmen or a lot of business people, or whatever you want to call them, use social media and websites almost as a propaganda tool. And I would probably say that, he is one of them because he's made his money through through media and papers and other stuff and knowing what sells as well. I think he probably does use people in social media. What I would like to say is, though, a lot of people assume that one of those persons that he uses is me. And I'm telling you, yes, in the past, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I would get the odd bit of info, but now, no, I'm definitely not one of them. But there are people out there that are his chosen media outlets, definitely.
I mean, I can say that there was a time 2 years ago now, maybe, I think you got asked to put a poll out and you refused to do it.
Yeah.
I remember exactly what that poll is. Now, I'm not going to go into it on the air and stuff, but I remember you got asked your poll and you said to me, I'm not doing it, I don't feel comfortable. And the poll still got done. It just wasn't through yourself on this occasion. A good question here from Thomas Longer-Gann says, how do the club feel about X leaking transfer funds?
Transfer funds?
So this summer it's been reported by yourselves and another in the know who we have on tomorrow, so I'll be asking him the same question. But you've both put out there that there's going to be 25 to £30 million to spend. So Thomas is asking, how does the club feel about you putting that out into the public domain?
Well, I can only speak. Well, actually, no, I can speak for the other person. I think they must feel comfortable with it because the person that told me it would be involved in the transfers, and the person that told the other person owns the club. So I'm guessing by the fact that we were told that information by those sources, they must feel reasonably comfortable with it. Now, whether that figure, again, is propaganda or not, who knows? Because it could be. Because if you go in, you can see it this way. If you go in and say your transfer budget is 30 million, and then you go in for a player that's, I don't know, you want to pay 20 million for, but the club are saying they want to sell him for 40 million. Well, if they've already put it out firmly in the media that the transfer budget is 30, then the other club, it gives them almost less room to kind of haggle, if that makes sense. So a lot of these things are generated, I guess, by the club in some ways, not always, but some ways. I mean, obviously, they don't like us to reveal absolutely everything they're doing, which is what I choose not to do. But they do tactfully put information out there. But as I say, all clubs do that, and all agents do that as well.
So just to confirm, round up, you're saying that is done in order to trick other clubs, if you like, as a smokescreen?
It could be. I'm not saying for certain it is.
Does that not then contradict what you just said earlier? Because earlier you said a club will never listen to a random fat guy on Twitter revealing the team sheet, but then you've just said that a club might listen to a random fat guy revealing the transfer budget. Does it not contradict itself?
I guess it does by you saying that, but as I'm saying, I don't know for certain whether they do or they don't listen to what this transfer fee is. But if they do listen, it could help. If they don't listen, then it has absolutely no impact. Do you see what I mean? Like people are saying, oh, if you put the transfer figure out there, I don't know whether clubs would listen to that or not, but what West Ham could say is, well, look, these people are saying this is what our budget is. They're right. This is our budget, but they could be lying. I don't know how other clubs react to these things, but I would be very, very surprised if, for example, they would be basing their whole negotiations around something that's tweeted out there. I don't think they would, personally.
Do you want an easy question, How?
I didn't realise it was going to be this hard, but fair play to you. Yeah, go on.
James Gunn says, does it feel weird to know that there are literally thousands of people stalking your Twitter account for updates? I mean, how does that feel, though? Because at the end of the day, you can put a rumour out there. You did it last year. You put out that fake link to Romero and journalists picked it up and threw it everywhere. So how does it feel knowing that there are thousands of West Ham fans and people in the media that take your word as gospel?
It's a bit of a weird feeling, I guess. It comes with a lot of pressure. And you can ask Dave the same question when I get off the radio show every single week. The first thing I'll say to him is, I hope I haven't said anything too controversial or too risky there. I hope this is right. And obviously, like you've seen today with the transfer today, if I get anything wrong, or even if I don't know something, which I've admitted I didn't know anything about this transfer deliberately in some ways because I've been away, then I just get a load of sticks. It does come with a lot of pressure, and it's probably not as enjoyable as some people think. I think some people think I sit there and go, ha ha ha, what can I do? And enjoy it. In some ways, it is obviously satisfying when you get things right. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't, but it's not as enjoyable as you think. And the reason we put that rumour out as well last year was just to prove, because the amount of people that say, he just copies it from News Now, or he just gets it from here or gets it from here. I wanted to show how far you can put out something and how far it can travel without being credited. And it was amazing because so many of these outlets claimed that they'd heard of this player, and it was just absolutely made up. And it was actually quite funny to sit back and see. And it's not the first time I've done that either. I did it a couple of times in the past as well. But yeah, that's been done and proven now, I guess.
Yeah, Unknown Driller says, Karen Brady has recently said the manager has 100% say in the transfers and the board has no involvement. Is this true? As far as you know, / in your opinion, do you think it's true?
Certainly not in the past. In the past, no. In the past, I would say it was 50-50, if not more weighted towards the chairman having the ultimate say. I think it's a two-way process. I think, yes, probably Brady and Gold have little say in the transfer, and I think certainly since Pellegrini and Huzilios have came in, they've got a lot more say. I mean, the signing today, for example, is clearly a Huzilios signing, clearly, as was Balbuena. And Jack Wilshere was clearly Pellegrini. Pellegrini definitely wanted him because I remember it being quite clear from David Sullivan, not to me, but from other outlets, that he didn't want Wilshere. So I do think probably the weighting is more towards Pellegrini and Huzilios. However, if Pellegrini was to go out and say, right, I want to spend 25 million on, I don't know, this player in League One who's very average, then I think the plug would be pulled on it. So probably, I don't know, 80% to 20%, that maybe then in that favour.
Johnny Messiah says, what's the worst transfer you've ever got wrong?
I don't know. I can't actually think. I think I got Kiate slightly wrong last year. I think what happened is that I was told he wasn't leaving West Ham, or they hadn't got the offer correct. They hadn't paid the right amount or something. And then I went on the radio show. That was the last I heard. I went on the radio show, said, yeah, looks like Kiate's staying, blah, 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 blah. And then it turns out that in that time, he'd agreed to join Crystal Palace. And then when I got off Twitter, having just said Kiate wasn't moving, he was there holding a Palace shirt. So that was a bit embarrassing, to say the least. But what people have to remember as well is that I'm not there in every single meeting that goes on about transfers. I've never claimed to be there. I'm not David Sullivan. I'm not anyone of any note. So unless the club is really, really fucked up, they're not going to suddenly go from not having a deal, then suddenly, okay, Palace have offered another 2 million or whatever. I'm thinking, right, we must let X know because he's got his radio show out tonight. So let's just quickly let him know. He'll get the information right, and then we'll conclude Kiata's deal. I'd love to think I was that important, but obviously I'm not. So with time, things do change very, very quickly. I've known of a transfer that was on in one day, on at like 10 o'clock, then off at 12, then on again at about 4, then off at about 7, then on again. And this is why the likes of, DG famously tweeted, "Don't go to bed." Because as of when he tweeted that, we were about to sign Adebayor, and then Spurs suddenly decided, right, you're not going to have Adebayor. We don't like West Ham, and pulled it at the last minute, and then he looked an idiot. So.
Yeah, Ashley Mayo says, what do you prefer, cottage pie or shepherd's pie?
That is probably the hardest question I've been asked so far. I prefer shepherds, I think.
Yeah, I think so too, actually. I don't know if I've ever had cottage pie. What's the difference, do you know?
It's different meat. I think shepherd's beef and cottage might be lamb, possibly.
You were the chef at West Ham, weren't you? I just completely tricked you there. That is your
as one of my famous trolls likes to call me, I'm the ex-burger flipper. So, I know my meats.
Yeah, the training ground chef. There you go. We've tricked you. We just tricked you up there. There's a couple of people asking if there's going to be a home pre-season game. Obviously, we're linked to Lazio. They're now playing Bournemouth the night before the 3rd of August. Do you think there will be a home game on the 3rd of August?
There will be a home game on the 3rd of August. I'm like 95% certain of that. But who the opposition will be, I couldn't tell you right now. What the club were doing is that they were basically the way it works. I don't know how much people know of this. You probably do, Gio, because you're a bit of a stato. But I don't know how much other people know. But when it comes to like opposition for pre-season friendlies, certain clubs, you pay them a fee because obviously the stature of the club and the fact that you'll get good gate receipts and it's good publicity and so on. So if you want to bring the likes of Barcelona or Real Madrid or teams of that stature, then you have to pay a big amount of money, and then it goes sort of down a bit and down a bit and down a bit. And they were kind of looking at that second tier of clubs. So your top tier of clubs are your Real Madrids, your Barcelona's, Juventus, teams like that. And then your second tier are like, I guess, sort of top half to middle of the table, teams in the big leagues, and then big teams in smaller leagues, if that makes sense. So I think PSG were like the top of that second tier. So I think it'll be a team from the second tier. But who that team is, I don't know at this point. As I say, I'm out the loop. I'll probably get off this show now and it'll be boom. It's whoever, but I don't know at this point.
Yeah. Last question for you, X, and then I'll let you disappear because I appreciate you're on your family holiday just now. James Gunn says, based on the knowledge you have right now, I'll put the disclaimer in here before X does. He's on holiday, so he's not being able to keep up to date all the time. But what do you think about us getting Andre Gomez?
Well, from what I heard, the last thing I heard was when I was watching the playoff final and I started to send the odd message out then that he was our top target. He was the one that we really, really want from midfield. He's the one that we're really most keen on. Everton, obviously, being his club last year, are the ones that are expected to sign him. But whenever we go up against Everton in the past, we've had quite a good track record. Ogbonna, Paye maybe. I'm sure there was someone else I'm forgetting.
Byram.
Who?
Byram. He was
Byram. Yes.
For medical, and we snatched him.
Yeah, there you go, Byram. And there might have even been one other as well, but maybe Obiang possibly. I can't remember. But anyway, there's been about 2 or 3, and we've managed to get them from under their noses. So you never know. I mean, the way the club works, and I explained this on the radio show, is that we have about 10 targets for forward, 10 targets for midfield, 10 targets for centre-back, and we kind of have them in priority order. And I'd probably say that Gomez, both in midfield and the other Gomez in forward position, are the top priority. And then you work away at that deal. And it's not like kind of Football Manager where you get your offer almost straight away and your acceptance or your rejection straight away. It takes time. And then once they realise, maybe that player's going somewhere else or that deal's not going to work, then they move down to the next name and so on. So I think it's going to be a a long process, but I hope we'll get a few decent players in. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, X, thank you very much for coming on. You're on your family holiday as well. You've decided to pop on here for an hour or so to talk to us, and I think you've been pretty honest as well, actually, considering some of the questions. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your holiday, mate.
Yeah, thank you, mate. I mean, I'll probably look back at some of the answers and want to have a second go at them, but maybe we can save that for another show.
Yeah, we will do. We'll save them for another day. Take care. Enjoy your holiday.
Take care, mate. See you, mate. Bye.
You can now purchase a season ticket for the Hammers Chat boats for the 2019-20 season. Prices start from £60 and includes entry to all boats events that we may have, including cup games and friendlies at the London Stadium next season. Please get in touch via email at hammerschat@gmail.com or via Twitter, hammers_chat. All details are in the description below. Get in touch and we'll see you next season.